Chapter 7. 1. "Look, man, I know we aren't exactly friends," said Danny. "Yeah, that's what happens when you assault somebody in the bathroom," I told him. Matthias had just concluded the morning pre-class car meeting, and we were walking across the parking lot toward the building. "You stole my girl! Defeating your nuts was part of my healing process. I didn't steal anything. We're not even dating. Why is that so hard for you to grasp? It's all in English. We are not romantically involved at all." "Then why did she break up with me?" "That's between you and her." He held up his hands. "It's fine, man, really. I've moved on. I just wanted to talk to you because I've heard you can, heal people." "I don't heal anyone. Unless they're one of your peeps." "No, I just asked Jesus to do the healing. Sometimes it happens." "Oh, right. Totally. Well, anyway, I hurt my knee. Bad. I have a good chance at first string next year if I can keep my stats up. But it keeps hurting, and I don't want to go to the doctor and take a chance on him telling me to stay off it. I gotta get a ball scholarship, man. I can't go to college and have to use my brain to get by. So can you know? You kicked me in the crotch and left me in the bathroom. Now you want me to pray for you? Hey, WWJD, bro. You know what I like? When jackasses want to treat people like crap, then expect everyone else to take the high ground when their turn comes around. Get out of my face, Danny. I told Price about the encounter later that day when we were leaving a hospital. I also told him about the elf oil warehouse incident, but he didn't seem very impressed by it. Actually, I was starting to believe it was impossible to impress him at all. As a healer, there will often be people seeking your aid whom you would rather not see healthy. As much as it may pain you to hear, this Danny is right. Jesus does command us to be kind to those who do us harm. Now, if there is a caveat to that, it is the question of whether or not you pray for someone whom you know will use that renewed strength or restored limb for evil. As legalistic as it's going to sound, I don't personally believe that a doctor or a healer can be held responsible, in part or whole, for the actions of those who are restored, although I do recognize that there are valid arguments to the contrary. These are dilemmas that you will have to seek God about when the time comes. He jumped me in the bathroom. Yes. And I don't need to remind you about what Jesus commands us regarding forgiveness of those who offend us. Christ healed everyone who came to him. Everyone. Even one of the men who were arresting him for no reason. Do you believe that everyone who came to him for healing were without faults? I grimaced. No. The difficult choices will come. Ask him to help you, and he will. Colin wants to teach Tran how to use a hammer. This is the same dwarf that attacked her and the others at random the other day. Yeah. I would advise her to be wary. Mercenaries can't be trusted, assuming he is one, and expecting real dwarves to match those found in some fantasy epic could lead to trouble. The person who paid him to attack your friends may be paying him to get close to her for a particular reason. Now I was actually worried. Was Colin up to something? Was he trying to separate Tran from the group for some sinister reason? Of course, living in fear is a slippery slope. It can lead to paranoia. So what would you do if you were me? Pray about it. Ask God to give you peace of mind if there is nothing dangerous involved. Does he actually do that? When I ask earnestly, yes, he always does. Don't necessarily look for a booming voice from the sky. He can speak that way, of course. But you've heard of the expression gut feeling? I nodded. There are those who believe that our spirit resides here. He patted his abdomen. And that's who God speaks to when he wants to get through to us because it's naturally attuned to the spirit realm. Listen to your gut feeling in situations that you're unsure about, and have faith that God will bring you out of any trouble that you encounter. My cell phone dinged. Is that your phone? Yeah. Shouldn't you check it? It's just one of those nutty girls sending me a text. I grumbled. I see. I asked them repeatedly not to text me for something unless it's important, and I guarantee that this is just one of them asking me to tell them which outfit looks better, or talking about boyfriend issues. I took the phone out of my pocket. Look, I'll show you. This one's from Matthias. Listen to this. She's going to kill my ass. Help! Price looked at me. Hey, what do you know? I scratched my head nervously. That actually, sounds kind of serious. 2. When Price and I arrived at Matthias's mansion, my mouth dropped open. That's Jess's car. Beg your pardon? My friend. But she just up and went to Alaska a few months ago for no reason. Nobody's heard from her since. What's she doing here? Price parked the car, then followed me into the house. Loud voices and rhythmic smacking sounds echoed from one of the distant rooms. We crept forward slowly until we could peek in and see what was going on. What was going on was that Jess was on top of Matthias, methodically pounding her in the face with one hand, while the other had a handful of Matthias's hair. Jess! Jessica stopped and looked at me. Her own hair was sweat-matted around her face in strands. Oh, you. Matthias slowly reached a quavering hand out. James, look what she's done to Mimi. Her face was a bruised and bloody mass of purple. Once again she had teeth missing. It appeared that Jess had caught her coming out of the shower because Matthias only had a pink bathrobe and fuzzy bunny slippers on. Jess punched her in the face again. Don't get in my way. You'll get yours when I'm done with her. Get mine? What does that mean? Don't act like you two weren't in on it together. You're not making sense. Did you two screw on the floor? Huh? In her bed? Did she promise you more if you just played along and let her do the dirty work? Jess, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just happy to see that you're back. Sure you are. She punched Matthias again. I was suddenly angry. Hey, you're the one who went off and didn't return anybody's calls. What was I supposed to think? Yes, because this bitch made me throw my cell phone out the window when she made me leave. Do you know what it's like to not want to do something but your body does it anyway? Do you know how that feels, James? She punched Matthias again. Jess, please. I don't know what's going on or what you think I did. But I promise you that I didn't know about any of it and I don't understand what you're— She mind-controlled me! She made me pack a suitcase! Smack! She made me leave a note for my parents! Smack! She made me throw my cell phone away! Smack! She made me drive to Alaska! Smack! And she made me forget everything about my life! Smack! Smack! Matthias was only making small moaning sounds now. She spit a bloody lump of mucus onto the hardwood floor that had 2 teeth in it. I didn't know anything about it! I cried. You have to know that! Maybe she got you too. Maybe she made you forget. You'd never know, would you? This gave me pause. I remembered the guys in the club that night, and how they looked so zonked out just standing there where Matthias had left them. I remember being crept out by it, but I guess the events that followed sort of made me gloss over that part of the night. Jess hit Matthias one more time, stood up, then sighed. I had thousands of miles to think about how to explain all this to my folks, but I got zilch. You have any ideas? I'll come with you. We'll think of something together. She shook her head. I've never lied to my parents. Do you think they'd believe the truth? At this point, they probably wouldn't care. They just want to see you and know you're okay. Jess scoffed. I can do the see me part, but the I'm okay part? That's going to take time. She punched me in the stomach as she walked past. That's for giving up on me. I wouldn't have given up on you. Breaking a symbiont's enthrallment is no small feat for a human, Price said as Jess drove away. It can't be done without the aid of a professional, and the service is never free. You do well to keep an eye on her, and find out how she did it if you can. All right, I husked. She's also right about the other matter. If the symbiont did it to your friend, then it's not outside the realm of possibility that— Is there any way to know for sure? Being examined by a professional is the surest way. Short of that, try to recall things that you've done that seem strange or out of character. I scoffed. You've just described the last few months of my life. Indeed, well, I'll leave you to it then. Call me if I can be of any assistance. Cheers. I staggered over to where Matthias lay and watched her. That you, Jameth? My eyeth are thwallen shuth. Be a doll and pour me thumb bourbon. You could have stopped her any time you wanted. Why didn't you? Thee embuthed us. How could you tink? Have you ever done it to me? Have you loath your ever-loving mind? Can't you thee we're in pain? Fixuth already? She held her hands up. Answer me. No. I knew it. I'm not lying. What's the point of asking thumb one a Quethian if you aren't going to believe what they tell you anyhow? Have you ever hypnotized me, Alinka? No, my love. You may choose to think me a liar if you with, but that ith the truth. Manipulating you into doing my bidding ith the much more fun than forthing you. Why did you do that to Jess? She looked away. Did you even try to stop her, Matthias? Stop her from doing that to Jess? Well, to tell the truth, no. I never liked Jethica, and thee never liked me. It wasn't my idea to vend her off to Kalamazoo, Alaska, but I didn't really care. Hey, where are you going? Jameth, you still gotta heal me. Jameth D. Riley, you come back here this instant. You can't leave me looking like this. Jameth. 3. I closed the front door behind me and was about to call a Uber driver when something rustled in the brush nearby. I expected a squirrel or some small bird. What I didn't expect was a woman. A doll-sized orange woman with dragonfly-like wings. 2 months ago, I would have shot the chocolate straight into my boxers at the sight of something like this. The only thing I could postulate at this point was that my fight-or-flight response had been edited to something like fight or flight. Or what did Matthias do now? This really worried me as the little creature peered out of the bushes. Hi, 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 she said in the tiny voice that I expected. Hi? Are you real? We'll get to that. First, my card. She reached a hand behind her back and came back with a small business card. I squinted, leaned in, but the letters were so tiny I could only barely make out that they were English. I, can't read this. Yeah, sorry, I can't afford the human-sized font. It says Freckelstein, Fairy of Forgiveness. Of what? Forgiveness. I've been assigned to you. You. Assigned? Anytime you hold unforgiveness towards someone, I get to bite you until you forgive them. 77 bites per day. Bite, bite, bite. Unforgiveness? I don't have any unforgiveness. Not according to this. She reached behind her back and came out with the tiniest J-pad that I had ever seen. She touched the face a few times, then held the screen up at me. I could see a picture of myself sitting on the toilet, but the tiny words were illegible. I can't read that either. And how did you get that picture? It says that you are harboring unforgiveness toward 4 people. 444. So I have to bite you until you forgive them. She put the tiny J-pad and business card away, and her voice became more businesslike. I'm legally obligated to tell you that I can defend myself if I feel like my life is threatened. The small sword that she took out of thin air was perfectly legible. Don't let the size fool you. I can gut you from balls to Adam's apple before you know what's happening. And if you think I'm kidding, then you should know that I've done it to bigger Humes than you for more than 200 years. Swatting me is legal, but if you squeeze me or get perverted, it's your ass. And believe me, you don't want a pissed-off fairy coming after you. She reached behind her and pulled out the J-pad with a stylus. Sign here if you understand. I'm not signing anything. That's okay. You don't have to. We just offer it to make people feel better. She put the stuff in that place behind her back, then rubbed her hands together. Well then, let's get started. She flew forward and bit me on the arm. Ow! That hurt! She buzzed around and bit my shoulder. Hey! I instinctively waved my hands around as if she were any flying insect. Another bite on my elbow, my thigh, my ankle, my other arm, my earlobe. I ran around the yard waving my arms and shouting. The sheer speed at which she moved was astounding. 50 more to go for today. 50, 50, 50. Need a break? Yes, I need a break. Stop biting me. Freckelstein took out a stopwatch. 10 minutes starting. Now. She put the stopwatch away and hovered a few feet away with her arms folded. The bite marks were each the size of a dime. As painful as they were, none of them seemed to have broken the skin. She bit me. Ow! Hey! It hasn't been 10 minutes yet! It looked like you needed a bite. Breaks can be truncated if the subject appears to need a bite. 49 more. How do you even know about my unforgiveness? Wait, did God send you? She sneered. Dunno. Your name was in my mailbox when I got up this morning. So God put it there? No, my boss did. And your boss isn't God? My boss is a fat bastard who hasn't done any real work in... Sorry, I got passed up for a promotion and I'm still a little peeved. I raised an eyebrow. You mean you haven't forgiven him? A little green puff of smoke appeared next to her. 2 little hands grabbed her arm and a fairy clamped his teeth on her shoulder. Ooh, Dualart, you dumb son of a... I just woke up and your name was in my mailbox. Mailbox, 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 shouted the little man. Actually, the only way I could tell he was a man was that he wasn't wearing the Barbie-sized sports bra like Freckelstein, and his hair was short. Otherwise, they both looked very feminine. Okay, fine. I forgive him. I forgive him. The little green fairy sniffed the air around Freckelstein. Seems legit. See ya, cuz. The little upper body zipped back into the puff of green smoke and he was gone. She stabbed a little orange finger at me. You did that on purpose. Whoa, careful. You have to forgive me, or your little boyfriend will come back. She smiled sweetly, but the strained venom in her voice was clear. That's my cousin Hume. Whatever. Who are these people that you say I'm not forgiving? She punched the face of the J-pad. I have the names, but I'm not allowed to tell you. Why not? Rules, rules, rules. Wouldn't it make your job easier to just tell me so I can forgive them right now? Rules are there to keep order, not make the job easier, chum. I can give you clues if you want. Clues? She nodded. Uh-huh, in the form of riddles. Why riddles? Because riddles are fun. I'm actually working to become a professional riddler. That's an actual profession? Yup. You think I want to spend the rest of my life biting people? Hell no. I want a real stock portfolio, my own pool, a treehouse that doesn't leak, the whole boats and hose package. That's just not going to happen in this crap job. You know what the retirement age for an unforgiveness fairy is? I shook my head. 800. My grandmother blew her dentures onto the cake at her retirement party when she went to blow out the candle. She was a good biter, though. Made the Hall of Fame. But I'm not going out like that. I want to be rich while I can still fly without a hunch in my back. Okay, fine. Give me a riddle of who I need to forgive. She nodded eagerly. But you have to rate each one from 1 to 10, 10 being the best. And don't worry about my feelings, chum. I need to improve, and nobody improves if you feed them horse poop. Fine. She tapped her chin and cleared her throat. Okay, here goes. The first is not very far. You've often driven her car. The hair on her head is gold, and the one living under it is quite bold. That was a 3. 3? Why you? I even gave you clue to 2 people in that riddle. That's what I get for trying to be nice. You said to be honest. Fair enough, she said through gritted teeth. Thank you for your honesty. I shall endeavor to improve. It might work to write them down and edit them a little before saying them to people. Improv is part of being a good riddler. If I can't spit out quality at the drop of a hat, then I'm no better than a sleazy stand-up comedian. I turned around and looked at the house. What does it matter if I forgive them? Nothing's going to change. Matthias and Alinka are just evil. What they did to Jess. Forgiveness. It is a good thing. Good for your health. I'm not ready to forgive them, I told her. They hurt my friend and lied to me. And they expect you to resent them. It's what they know they deserve, and it makes them feel better. Why would that make them feel better? When people do bad things, on some level they know they deserve bad things back. It's just natural. You go back in that house and forgive her. It'll blow her mind. She'll be ashamed. Neither one of them are capable of shame. Some people aren't. The ones who are hopeless. But that isn't your problem. You have to forgive them. How do I do it? How can I just flip a switch and not be angry at her after what she did to Jess? Why do Humes think that forgiveness is about not being angry? Forgiveness is more like when someone owes you something, and you tell yourself that they don't owe it to you anymore. Just drop it and give them a clean slate. Oh? And you can't just tell people that instead of biting them? Hey, I'm a professional! You should feel honored that someone thought you were worthy of my specialized attention. 4. I found Matthias sitting on the floor holding a small brown bottle up to her nose. What are you doing? Sniffing orange oil, she said. Orange oil? The thent maketh me happy. I thought you wanted bourbon. Yeth, but since my eyes are thwallen thut and I can't thee where I'm walking, I had to thettle for sniffing orange oil. How did you find a bottle of orange oil if you can't see? I put my hand in the thofa cushion and it was there. So, in the throes of pain and unable to see, you put your hand between the cushions of the sofa looking for solace. She shrugged. There can be all kinds of neat stuff in a thofa cuthian. When I was a kid, Daddy would always thit me on the thofa when I got thad. He'd thuff candy and toys in the cushions. It's where I found the keys to the Mini Cooper when I got my driver's license. Who gets sad when they get their driver's license? I didn't have a car, though I was thad. But Daddy had put the car keys right there under the thofa cushions, knowing that I would thick my hand in there looking for money. And after that he started stuffing bottles of essential oils in there? Yes, because he knows essential oils make me happy. That's in the top 10 weirdest things I've ever heard of in my life, and I surf the internet. Did you come back, Juth, to make fun of me? No, I have to forgive you. Forgive me? For what you and Alinka did to Jess. We're not Thori. That doesn't matter. I sat next to her and held her wrist. Are you Bible-thumping me? No, I'm just trying to do the right thing. Though I can do anything I want and you have to eat it? Matthias, I'm kidding. Geez, rent a tenth of humor. By now the bruises had faded and her face was back to normal aside from the blood streaks that she'd have to wipe away. I seriously doubt that you're kidding. What you did to Jess is wrong, beyond wrong. I knew you were selfish and crazy, but I never would have thought you'd do something like that. Then I guess you know me a little better now. One down, said Freckelstein, popping up just behind Matthias's shoulder. 3 more to go. Matthias and Alinka screamed and were crawling up my back like a monkey in an instant. Eek! What the shit? What the shit? I fell forward from the sudden weight. Matthias ran around waving her arms and screaming as Freckelstein buzzed around her, deftly avoiding the wildly flailing hands. The little woman made some kind of bird-like tweeting sound as she buzzed about, and I realized that she was actually enjoying terrifying them. Matthias finally yanked a pillow from the couch and sent Freckelstein flying into a wall with a blind swat. The fairy growled and drew her sword. With a loud buzz and amazing speed, she zipped around Matthias's head and back to the wall. Only now she was holding a large chunk of blonde hair. Matthias's eyes were wide as she felt the back of her head. My hair! The little shit cut my hair off! Consider yourself lucky, Freckelstein retorted. I could have cut your throat just as easily. Rage replaced fear, and Matthias charged toward her, but I grabbed Matthias around the waist. Matthias, no! Wait! You better get control of your worm girl, Hume. Nobody swats me and gets away clean. You were chasing her around. That doesn't give her the right to swat me. And with a pillow! A pillow! You're dead, you little... Matthias's eyes were wild. Oh, I wish you'd try it, Wormbrain. I wish you would. Both of you shut up! I shouted. Matthias, you have to calm down. Her name is Freckelstein, and she's been assigned to... Forget it. Just get a hold of yourself. Freckelstein, my friend just has a thing about bugs. She didn't mean to... Bug? I'm not a bug, I'm a fairy. I've been nice to you, but if you're going to use racial slurs, then I can turn the mean on real quick like. Sorry, I wasn't calling you a bug. I was just... Can you please put the sword away? Not as long as she's holding that pillow. I yanked the pillow away from Matthias and tossed it onto the sofa. Okay? Freckelstein sheathed the weapon. Okay, now we're calm, right? Matthias? Matthias pried my arms off her waist but kept watching the fairy. Great, I said. Matthias, this is Freckelstein. She's here to, straighten me out. You make me sound like a chiropractor, said Freckelstein. I shrugged. Isn't that kind of what you are? A chiropractor for the soul? She arched an eyebrow and took out her J-pad. I never thought of it like that. I'm writing that down to use later. Chiropractor for the soul. Don't expect royalties. Okay, you have 3 more people to forgive. Do you want to hear my riddle again? Please, no. But I edited it. Riddles! Matthias was still livid. The back of her hair now had a hilarious unfinished look, and it took everything I had not to laugh myself to tears. Freckelstein wants to be a professional riddler because she's tired of her current job and wants to earn enough money to roll in boats and hoes. The fairy straightened her posture pridefully. I don't give a shit about her life aspirations, shrieked Matthias. What's the new riddle, Freckelstein? Freckelstein smirked. Okay, here goes. Your next foe is not in bed, but she won't die because she lives in an airhead. Matthias scoffed. That's the dumbest... Matthias, I shouted. Okay, that's about a 4. A 4? A 4? But it rhymed. And that's what kept it from being a 3, I told her. You told me to be honest, right? I just want you to be the best riddler you can be. Freckelstein's wings fluttered. Really? I nodded. You're not just saying that so I'll go easy with the biting? Matthias looked at me. Biting? She's biting you? She listened impatiently as I explained what Freckelstein was and why she was here. And she can't just tell you who you have to forgive. It's the rules or something. Right now I have to forgive Alinka. Forgive me for what, my love? Asked Alinka. Don't play innocent. You know exactly what for. But I do not. We seem to vex you so much that it's hard to know for certain. We try to make you happy, but sometimes it is as if you don't want either of us to exist at all. For what you did to Jess. But it sounds as if forgiveness is something that you are not quite ready for. There's nothing wrong with being angry. I would understand. But I'm ready for this fairy to stop biting me, so... I sighed. But Alinka's coy little expression didn't make it any easier. She wasn't the least bit sorry about what she had done to Jess. Frecklestein was watching her J-pad. I shut my eyes and tried to do what the fairy had told me in the front yard. After a few moments, she gave me a worried expression. "What's wrong?" I asked. "I got good news and bad news. Which one do you want first?" "Just give me the bad," I grumbled. Her wings fell. "I knew you'd be the bad news first kind of Hume." So? So? So giving the bad news first ruins the punchline. If I give you the bad news first, then it overshadows the good news. Ideally, you want to deliver the good news first so that the bad news, given last, can linger and be savored. Nobody savors bad news. The people who aren't getting it do. Can you just tell me, please? Okay. She cleared her throat. The good news is that you knocked another loser off your list. Hooray, hooray, hooray. I waited. The bad news is that your 10 minutes is up. You want me to do all 49 bites now, or 7 over the next 7 hours? I held out my arms. Just do them now. What the hell is happening? Asked Matthias. I just explained it to you. I thought you meant bite metaphorically. Yeah, I thought she meant it metaphorically at first, too. Nope, she actually bites people. And you're not creeped out at all? I'm just watching and it's making me cringe. That's because, Frecklestein began and bit me. He has honor and accepts his... She bit me again. Comeuppance. Okay, chum, that's your daily bites done. Think about who else you have to forgive or I'll be back tomorrow. Wait, you're not going to give me a clue? A clue? Can't you think of 2 more people that you have a beef with? I shrugged. I don't know. I don't really have enemies. Oh, that's going to change. Especially if you keep hanging around her. Fine, I'll give you a clue. She took out her J-pad, put it away, tapped her chin thoughtfully, then fluttered her wings. Okay, here goes. This one doesn't use girly pads, but his foot is acquainted with your gonads. I smacked my forehead. Danny, of course. Well, how was that riddle? It rhymed. The bit about girly pads was off-putting, but it did describe that idiot. 6. Another flutter of wings. I can live with that. See ya. The fairy did a little dance routine and disappeared into a puff of orange smoke. Matthias held up a finger. A fairy, James? A fairy? You have a sentient being living in your skull who gives you superpowers and changes the size of your boobs and butt. Stop acting like a fairy is the weirdest thing you've ever seen. She looked down at her chest, smiled, and sat on the sofa. They're so perky. I'm so glad I took Chrissy's advice and grew them out little by little. That way people think that I'm just a late bloomer and their minds don't get blown all at... Wait, you noticed my butt? I'm going to see what I can do to help Jess. It didn't sound to me like she wanted your help. She was right. I shouldn't have given up. I should have... Excuse me. I know that I'm not the person to be asking this, but since nobody else is here, I'm going to. What the hell could you have done that you didn't do? Drive up to Alaska to look for her? Besides, she wasn't going to come back no matter what you said. You would have just wasted a whole lot of gas and a whole lot of my time. I should have taken more initiative. Maybe even dragged her back home if it came to that. You could have gotten your ass dragged to a hospital for trying. Didn't you say she was a karate expert? Then I could have called her folks and told her where she was when I found her. They could have at least known for sure that she was okay. I learned a long time ago not to let people put junk on me that I didn't earn. And you didn't earn this. Yeah, you're right. You're not the person to be telling me this. She shrugged. It's up to you. Anyhow, my parents are flying in next week. Just thought you'd like to know. I shrugged. So? So I thought you'd like to know. Why would I? They want to meet you. Why? Because I told them about you. Matthias, they don't think we're... Of course not, silly. I just told them that you've really been helping me in school and that you're a nice guy. I smacked a hand to my forehead. What's wrong with telling them that? You know exactly what's wrong. When I told them that I broke up with Danny, they were worried about me because guys don't usually do well when they break up with me. I have a stack of restraining orders this thick. She held a thumb and forefinger 2 inches apart. Were any of those guys actually stalking you? Or did you just get the restraining orders for conversation pieces? Anyhow, I told my folks that I was seeing someone else. It's not like it's a lie. But we aren't seeing each other, Matthias. Why don't you make that more clear to people? We are not dating. I see you right now. Technically, you've been in my field of vision for the last 4 months. I'm leaving. Okay, fine. You want to know the truth? The truth is that I can't date anyone. You know that's why I broke up with Danny. So what? Lots of girls don't have boyfriends and they get by just fine. Trainee and Chrissy have boyfriends. Do you know how it would look if I didn't? Let me tell you. It would make me look like a complete loser. I may as well be living in a house with 20 cats. Your parents changed your diapers. You're always going to look like a loser to them. You don't know my parents, hun. I miss a meal. Next thing I know, they're flying in the best therapist in the state. If they show up and I don't have a boyfriend, I'll have to endure daily interventions. You know, like junkies go through? Except this is with my mom and dad sitting me down to talk. They ask about everything from my diet to school to stuff you really don't want to know about. Wait, have you been telling people at school that I haven't told them anything. I just let things sort of run their course. People know we spend a lot of time together, so they just naturally assume hot, stinky nature TV show love is involved. So all this time, I've been looking like an idiot telling people that we're not dating and you haven't been helping me deny it? They wouldn't believe us anyway. James, you're a guy spending copious amounts of time with the hottest and most popular girl in school. There's only one logical conclusion people will draw from that if you're straight. And what are you possibly getting out of it? Are you kidding? Someone of my status reaching down and giving a loser a chance to shine? It's the stuff of fairy tales. Just being seen with you has made me more popular than ever. People think love is all that matters to me, not a guy's car or his position on the football team. And we're, interracial. We're tearing down barriers. You did not just say that. You haven't noticed how many more mixed couples are popping up around school? Celebrities get a bad rap, but we set the rhythm for the whole school and for society. James, we could be good for each other if you just shut the hell up, enjoy the scenery, and let people think what they want. 30% of being popular is just letting people talk. 60% is being naturally charismatic and irresistible. If you'd socialize a little more, you'd see that I've brought you a long way. You haven't brought me anything but grief, and the numbers that you just gave only add up to 90%. She paused, looked down and wiggled her fingers. 70. I meant 70% is being charismatic and irresistible. I sighed. You did it. I did everything I could to keep it from happening, but you did it. You pulled me into your black hole of vapid teen drama stupidity. Welcome to the jungle. We've got fun and games. Just tell me one thing. Do your parents know I'm black? What kind of racist question is that? I want to know what to expect. My brother dated a white woman when he was in high school, and her parents had a hard time dealing with it. They weren't obviously racist, but he said that there was always an awkwardness when they interacted. There's nothing strange about that. Sometimes parents get along with their daughter's boyfriends, and sometimes it's awkward, and sometimes they just hate him. How would you feel if you had a daughter, and she brought home a guy that you knew wanted to make hot, stinky nature TV show love with her? Stop saying hot, stinky nature TV show love. That's not even an issue. Well, my parents think it is, and they aren't racist. They're the most down-to-earth people you'll ever meet. If anything feels weird, it'll be because of you. Maybe you should look in the mirror if you want to see an actual racist. I threw my hands up. I can't deal with this right now. I can't. All you have to do is wear something sensible and follow my lead. My folks will think we're a thing, and I won't have to talk to a therapist. A therapist is exactly what you need. And after they meet you, everything will be the same. Oh, and try to talk like someone who actually has a plan for his life. What, like sports? You know I can't talk about sports to save my life. Matthias began walking up the stairs to her bedroom as we spoke. So talk about doctor stuff. Go nerd on them like you did with those freaks in the parking lot the other night. I can't just do that at the drop of a hat. There has to be context. She shut the bathroom door and, I assume, finally saw her reflection in the mirror. You'll figure it out. I actually have faith in... Oh my God, look at my hair. 5. Things with Jess didn't get better. She didn't talk to me, but her parents told me that she enrolled in a private school. Mr. Montoya advised me to give her time, so that's what I did. The need to explain things and make the whole situation right was sickening, but I had to teach myself to let it go. Jess's ability to hold a grudge, justified or not, was legendary. Danny actually cried and gave me a huge bear hug when I prayed for his knee. It was the day before he was scheduled to go in for surgery. Oh bro, you don't know what this means. I don't have to have surgery, bro. I patted him on the arm. Yeah, alright, ease up. People are going to get the wrong idea. Oh yeah, right. He straightened up and cleared his throat. No homo. But seriously, man, you ever need anything, you just call. I mean it. I owe you big time. We're homies for life. One of the jocks standing nearby pointed at me. Hey man, isn't this the guy that stole your girl and tried to impregnate her by the barbecue pit? Danny socked him in the jaw. Nobody talks that way about my good buddy James. He's just tutoring Maddie. He turned and gave me a winning smile and a thumbs up. But if he wanted to impregnate her, it would be all right with me. Even as I helped the nameless jock back to his feet, I had to admit that it felt cool to have someone stick up for me. I'd have to have a word with him about going around shouting that impregnation mumbo-jumbo, though. The following Saturday was when Matthias had scheduled me to go to her house and have dinner with her parents. Even though I was completely secure in the reality that I had no romantic intentions toward her, and thus had nothing to be nervous about in meeting her folks, I still got the old tummy flies, Uncle Jay's word for butterflies in one's stomach. Whoever thought of that saying couldn't have really experienced anything like true nerves. What was happening in my stomach was more like ricocheting jackhammers. I had to go to the bathroom twice already, and I prayed that my stomach wouldn't make any weird noises when I was talking to her folks. Do I need to bring something? I asked Uncle Jay. I mean, it's not like I'm picking Matthias up for prom, right? Flowers for her mother wouldn't hurt. That's how we did things in my day. Are there any florists open this late? I'm pretty sure they sell flowers in the grocery store up the street. Just swing on by on your way out. Should I get roses? Nah, boy. Not unless you're looking to court her mama. Something simple will do fine. Something bright if you can find it. You just relax and enjoy yourself, you hear? If baby girl wants you to meet her parents, she must think you're really something. All you gotta do is be yourself and show them why. Yeah, right. The old be yourself motivational speech. Yet another on the long list of things that I didn't understand. If you wanted to get technical about it, it was impossible for anyone to not be themselves. Acting like someone else, or contrary to what is perceived as normal in any given situation, is, in itself, a personality trait. The Luber driver dropped me off at the gate, and I was about to press the intercom button when Matthias appeared from behind a wall with an appraising finger on her chin. That'll do. Whoa! You scared the crap out of me. What are you doing out here? I was waiting to see if you would show up looking respectable. You have a knack for not dressing for occasions. I'm surprised that you even know what a tie is. And what if I had been wearing something that didn't meet your approval? Then we would have marched directly to the garage, where I have one of my brother's tuxedos waiting for you. He's a little bigger than you in the shoulders, though. It would have looked frumpy. You're being ridiculous. My parents think that we're dating, and I won't have them thinking that I date a fashion ignoramus who doesn't even have a basic concept of when not to dress like a car mechanic. Now shut up and hook arms with me. We have a long night ahead of us. What I found really helpful in times of extreme nervousness was to get mad at something. I mean really pissed. The upside was that Matthias and Alinka reliably provided that fuel to me at least 3 times a day. If I were giving a speech in front of class, for example, I would come off as more confident and authoritative than I actually was. Confident was good, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to seem authoritative with her folks. I don't know why I expected them to look like celebrities. Maybe I just figured that Matthias's vanity and general arrogance were inherited. Don't get me wrong. Her mother, a slender woman from whom Matthias clearly got most of her physical features, had a windswept hairdo that said money. Her father was a stocky man with a balding head, a mustache, and a waistline that told me that he was probably responsible for the well-stocked cabinet of booze that Matthias partook from so freely. Matthias took my hand and tugged me inside. Mama, Daddy, this is James. James, these are my folks. Mr. and Mrs. Raptis, nice to meet you both, I said. We shook hands and I presented Mrs. Raptis with the flowers. Oh, what a sweet young man. Thank you. They're lovely. Please come in. Would you care for something to drink? We have plenty of sodas. Water would be fine, if you don't mind. Damn it, that rhymed. As if they didn't already expect me to be a rapper. Mr. Raptus put a hand on his wife's shoulder as she turned toward the kitchen. Young man, are you a hippie? No, sir. Are you one of those skinny jeans-wearing girly boys what thinks he's going to save the world by passing on a can of cold, high-fructose corn syrup? No, sir. Do you believe that the world's population should be reduced starting with anyone but you? No, sir. Good. Diana, get this young man a can of... He squinted, appraising at me. Root beer. You like root beer? Yes, sir. Thought so. He smacked his wife on the rear and chuckled. I can always tell what kind of drink a man likes. It's in his eyes, in his walk, how he carries himself. You actually guessed that I liked root beer from the way I walked? I was amazed. Well, I used to be a nut for it myself when I was around your age, so I can usually spot a friend of the root. But once I hit 16 and got a hold of my old man's stash of Jack, I never looked back. You know pool, James? Not the official rules, but I do like the sport. Well then, let's give you the grand tour of the place, and after that, we'll hit the man cave and shoot some pool. How's that sound? Sounds great. As big as Matthias's house was, I had been here enough to have gotten used to the layout. It was sort of weird to now be acting like I was unfamiliar with it for the benefit of her parents, but her dad really seemed to like showing me around. Mrs. Raptus had arranged a cool plate of meat and cheeses skewered with toothpicks. She set the plate in the living room and told everyone to help themselves. Begging your pardon, James, but it's been some time since I've made a plate of edibles. I may have lost the knack. Mama used to own a catering company, said Matthias. Mama, won't you tell him about your catering business? Oh, James doesn't want to hear about that boring stuff. Yes, he does. Now tell him. I looked sideways at Matthias. Mrs. Raptus cleared her throat. Well, I've always been something of a chef, and before Edward and I started traveling with his real estate business, I did some catering. She even won awards, Matthias added. Didn't you, Mama? A few, yes. Daddy, James doesn't like sports. Turn to the Sci-Fi Channel. He likes that. No, please, Mr. Raptus, I said hastily. We can watch whatever you want. Matthias, what's wrong with you? Matthias waved a hand. Oh, he doesn't mind. He's recording the game on the DVR anyhow. I watched embarrassed as Mr. Raptus began changing the channels. Oh, I didn't realize. Here, what number is the science fiction channel on? Mr. Raptus, please. Just keep flipping, Daddy. You'll find it, encouraged Matthias. I cringed and reached for a piece of food on the tray. Well, this looks really amazing, Mrs. Raptus. I kind of just want to look at it. Oh, now don't be like that. She looked genuinely pleased. You just eat all you want. My mama used to always say, better to go to the waste than to go to waste. There's just so much hunger in the world. So you mentioned that you do work in your local church? I nodded and swallowed a mouthful of shrimp seasoned with something slightly spicy. Just some cleaning now and then. My uncle's a deacon, so church was pretty much a second home for my brother and me. I think that's wonderful. Young men should do meaningful things for their community. Never had much use for religion myself, said Mr. Raptus, but I was raised in church too. I think it's a good way for a young man to stay grounded and out of trouble. After that, we made small talk about my plans for college. Mr. Raptus finally gave up on trying to find the Sci-Fi Channel and went back to the football game when Matthias got a call on her cell phone and left the room. She had made me feel like a jerk, and I made a mental note to tell her later on. Overall, the whole ordeal turned out to feel less formal than I thought it would be. It wasn't even awkward when Mrs. Raptus showed me the missing big toe of her left foot after she saw my prosthetic leg and asked about it. One of my horses got spooked and stepped on my foot just after our wedding, she explained. It broke all my toes, but the big one got the worst of it. The doctor said that it would always be in pain if I kept it, so I told them to lop it off. Isn't it funny how you can still feel the stuff you lose? Yes, ma'am. Matthias came back from the other room and beckoned me. James, can I talk to you? You two behave yourselves now, said Mrs. Raptus with a knowing expression. I opened my mouth to say something, but Matthias beckoned me urgently. James! 6. Matthias shut the door, showed me her cell phone, and whispered, Chrissy just sent me this video. A video? Is this more important than getting your parents off your back? Just watch the video. The vantage point of the camera was from a place above, probably a corner camera. Kids going to and fro in the frame in a slightly sped-up rate. Then one kid appeared, then stopped when confronted by two bigger kids. They pushed him down, kicked him viciously, then left him lying there. Nobody helped him? I asked. All those kids. They're all just walking by like he's not there. The video made the news, so I guess someone found out about it. Trainee looked into it, though. Nothing happened to the little bastards. They're both minors, so there's not much that the cops could do. It's too bad. Too bad? That's all you can say? What else is there to say? Oh, I don't know. How about, let's suit up and find the little shitbirds. We can't beat up kids, she scoffed. Is that what you call them? Because they don't look like kids to me. They look like scumbag muggers hurting a defenseless little boy. Here, look at this. Chrissy made this video and put it up on her yoga channel the other day. I watched Matthias and she tapped the face of her phone. I'd never heard her actually sound like this. The next video was of Krista not doing yoga, but sitting in a chair at what looked like a kitchen table. She discussed how wrong bullying was and what kids should do to stop it. It was generic advice that wouldn't really help anyone. At the end of the video, however, she gave an email and said that she would personally try to help those who needed it. Krista did this on her own? I suggested it, actually. You wouldn't believe how many emails have come in from all over the state. So what? People email her and we go after their bullies? Do you have a better idea? Heroes help people, James, and that's what we are now. Trainee hacked the school records and found the names and addresses of the little bastards. Since they like messing with kids smaller than them, we're going to give them a taste of their own medicine. I hesitated, then nodded. Do we go now? No, dummy. We need to plan, and we need a new base of operations. My parents cannot find out about this. Maybe that place that we interrogated Mrs. Rollingpin at. It was out of the way. I already have a place in mind. We'll talk about it. But right now it's time for you to go home. You're wearing out your welcome. Hey, don't say that like I want to be here. You're the one who arranged all of this. She folded her arms. And now I'm arranging for you to make a graceful exit. Wait, this wasn't how you expected this to go, was it? What did you expect? That I would say something stupid or... No. You wanted this to go bad, didn't you? You wanted therapy. Let's just say that my parents are a lot more financially agreeable when they think that I'm on the edge of going batshit. Hold up. You said that they would send you to a shrink if you didn't have a boyfriend. Why tell them about me at all if that's what you wanted? Because pity is the currency that greases the wheels of our relationship, she whispered harshly. And I'd get more of it if they thought that they ruined our relationship. It was a simple plan. They were supposed to hate you like they hate every boy that I bring home. I'd scream at them about being racist and be able to guilt-trip them for anything I wanted for months, maybe years. But no, you had to talk about your church stuff and hobo feeding. Now they think you're a good influence on me. You said your parents weren't racist. They're not racist, you egg. It was going to be an accusation. They'd go all bleeding heart, and the money train would keep rocking down the tracks. Why are you closing your eyes? I'm praying to God that crazy isn't contagious. There was a doorbell sound from the living room. That's the gate intercom. Matthias's voice had dropped. Someone's outside. Are you expecting anyone else? She shook her head, and we listened as Mrs. Raptis spoke into the intercom. The voice on the other side was audible, but the words weren't clear enough for me to make sense of them through the door. Ilinka grabbed my arm. That is Esmeralda! Who's Esmeralda? My sister! That is her voice! Your sister? How? I don't know. The fools must have hired someone to follow me just as I did to them. You hired... No, never mind, just tell me what we're supposed to do. You must stay out of sight. Why? You are my greatest advantage. My mother's throne is all but guaranteed to the one of us who presents her Zaire when the time comes. The throne? If they know of you, then they will kill you. Stay here and do not make a sound until I return. Maddie, called Mrs. Raptis. I think some of your friends have arrived. Ilinka squeezed my shoulders desperately. Stay here, keep the door shut, and be as quiet as you possibly can. Your life depends on it. 7. Ilinka left me in the room. Matthias's parents had gone to greet the visitors, and I just stood in the study for what seemed like forever. Finally, the voices began to get close until I could tell that they were in the next room again. So, Ilinka, tell us how things are with you. said one of the new voices, a woman with a Spanish accent. We were worried since Mother says that she had not heard from you since the contest began. Indeed, Ilinka. Short, on edge. We were, said another woman with an English accent. Mother in particular. She expected you to at least check in, and when you didn't she had no choice but to ask us to find you. She's convinced that you have been hiding, perhaps even hatching something diabolical. But Esme and I were convinced that something untoward had befallen you. Our eldest sister would never attempt to conceal anything from her family after all. Yet we find you in this beautiful home, unscathed and looking quite healthy. Oh, I see, Mrs. Raptis said to Mr. Raptis. They're acting out a play, sweetheart. Oh, I love plays. Is this for school? There was no reply to the question. Oh, excuse us, said Mrs. Raptis. This must be what they call being in character. In a character? Asked Mr. Raptis, but his wife shushed him. I was not trying to hide, nor have I been set upon, said Ilinka. I simply got involved with my own affairs and neglected to keep in touch. Ah, that is understandable, said English accent. Each of us are, after all, working to earn the throne, but we mustn't forget that family comes first. A simple phone call would ease Mother's mind. Then I will call her, Ilinka said. I could hear the tightness in her tone. Family or not, she wanted these women to leave. Maddie, sorry to interrupt, but is James feeling okay? He's been in the study for an awfully long time. He didn't get sick off anything that we fed him, did he? Ilinka didn't answer, but I could almost see the sharp look that she gave Mrs. Raptis. James? Asked English accent. Is that the name of your Jair? Zaire? Gasped Spanish accent. You didn't mention that you had found your Zaire. How delightful for you. And he is here? Oh, he must be, since his uncle was quite adamant that he was not at his home. I burst through the door. Uncle Jay! One instant Ilinka and her sisters were sitting. The next instant the three women were in front of me. More specifically, Ilinka was in front of me holding the throats of the other two women, keeping them just out of reach. Stay your hands or lose them, she snarled. Stupid boy! I told you to stay hidden! They did something to Uncle Jay! All I could visualize was Jessica and the guys zonked out at the nightclub and Uncle Jay drooling somewhere, or worse. What did you do? We have a legal right to taste the boy, choked the one on the left, a wonderfully beautiful Afro-Asian girl. Blasian is the generally accepted non-PC term. Both of her hands were grasping Ilinka's wrist, but not in a desperate way. It is ancient law, said the other. Her hair was dark red with curls. They were both older looking than Matthias, but both were fashion magazine beautiful. An ancient law that won't matter if I rip the two of you out of these skulls. And lose all hope for the throne? Asked Red Curls, English accent. Come now, sister. We all know that you would never do such a thing. We only want what is rightfully ours. One taste. It will not kill him. I gaped when Ilinka let them go. Ilinka! They are right, she said. The ancient law is clear. This is why I told you to stay hidden. I don't care about laws. If you hurt my uncle, we only tasted him, said Blasian, Spanish accent. What would we want with a sinewy old man? Your Zaire is comely enough but not very smart, Red told Ilinka. I thought you preferred intelligent prey, sister. He isn't prey, Ilinka bit. My love, you must... The two women burst out into squealing laughter at this. Love! Illy's found true love! The rumors were true! How wonderful! Ilinka straightened her posture. James, be assured that they are being truthful. Your uncle as well. As my sisters, however, Olivia and Esmeralda have a legal right to sample your essence one time. Think of it as what you have done tonight with those two. She looked at Mr. and Mrs. Raptis. An introduction. I rolled my eyes. Fine, whatever. I held out my arm to them, but Ilinka shoved it down before they could grab it. Allow him to sit, she told the women. Still smiling greedily, the women followed as Ilinka led me to the other sofa. Mr. Raptis nudged his wife and chuckled jovially. Looks like things are about to get interesting. Maddie, I hope this play ain't X-rated. Me first, shouted Red Olivia, but Ilinka stood in front of them. 3 seconds for each of you, is that understood? 3 seconds isn't enough to... Blasian Esmeralda began. It is enough. It will be enough. Ilinka's voice was stern. 3 seconds. When she stood aside, Olivia grabbed my arm and her green eyes flashed. Until then, the only reference that I had for what to expect was what I had seen that night in Matthias's room when she grabbed the jock, and I quickly discovered that it was far worse than it had looked. My heart suddenly thumped like I had been running a mile, and my limbs felt like heavy lead attachments to my body. It was a deep, tingly feeling, like when your leg goes to sleep and feels sluggish when you try to move it. "Oh my, no lust at all?" asked Olivia, when Alinka slapped her hand away. "Do you not find me attractive, boy?" Esmeralda reached for me with both hands before I could answer, but Alinka held her at bay. "It's my turn to taste him. James, do you need a moment?" asked Alinka. What I needed was 10 minutes. Damn, I felt completely spent, and that had only been 3 seconds. "I'm ready." Olivia's 3 seconds made my head hurt and vision swim. My arms and shoulders slumped helplessly beside me. She gave me the same puzzled expression that Esmeralda had, and I could see that something hadn't happened the way she expected. "Peculiar indeed. How is it that you haven't broken him yet?" Alinka checked my pulse, looked at my pupils. "I hear that a jair of principles is quite bothersome," said Esmeralda. "You should have called us to help you break him. We are your sisters, after all." Now Alinka turned. "Help! Even if the depths of my power hadn't surpassed your feeble imaginations, I would never need help from either of you." "Well, it's good to know that true love has not diminished your arrogance," said Olivia. "But Esme and I thought that it would only be fair to warn you that we are working together now." "Together? For the throne, yes. What foolishness is this? Since learning of your good fortune, we realize that our chances of Mother granting either of us the crown is next to 0, said Esmeralda. "So we've decided to work together against you." Ilinka laughed. "Oh, my dear sweet sisters, how amusing. Tell me, since both of you cannot become queen, how will the two of you decide who will wear the crown?" The women shrugged, and Olivia said, "We will flip a coin." Alinka's throaty laughter was renewed. "A coin! Oh, my love, you must forgive my young sisters. I would not have you believe that they are typically this stupid. Live, Esme, the throne is mine. Accept it. Save your energy for my service. I expect the same loyalty and vigor that we have given Mother. Now, you have tasted my jair, and you have made me laugh. Be on your way before I lose my light-hearted mood." Mr. and Mrs. Raptus stood up and clapped excitedly. "Bravo! Bravo!" 8. Fortunately, we were able to convince Mr. and Mrs. Raptus that Matthias was only wearing special purple-colored contacts, and that we were using a J-phone app to make it look like she and the other two women were moving really fast. Actually, I don't think they completely bought it, but they had no intention of challenging Matthias. There was some weird family dynamic at work here, and it seemed to involve them being really afraid of disappointing her. I seriously doubted if they had ever said no to her about anything, which explained a hell of a lot. There were bigger issues to worry about at the moment, however. When her parents gave us some private time in the living room, Alinka finally took time and explained some things. She told me about the contest that she was in with her sisters to win her mother's title. "Why do your sisters have different accents?" I asked. "The accents of a symbiont's first host are imprinted onto them. My mother had business in Romania when I was born. Therefore, she arranged for me to bind to a Romanian woman. It takes time for a newborn symbiont to grow accustomed to the complexity of human brains, and in that time we are immersed in the culture and society of the host. I was dormant in her brain for 20 years before leaving." "And she died?" "It is a part of the development process. She did not suffer, if that concerns you, and she was already beyond her physical prime when my mother introduced me to her." Never mind," I said. "Queen of Texas? That's an actual position someone can have?" "The symbiont matriarchy is quite strong. I told you before that you've probably interacted with many of us without knowing it." "So a Queen of Texas title implies that there's a Queen of New York? Illinois?" She nodded. 50 queens in the United States, each ruling her own territory until she passes the title down to one of her daughters. There are queens in every major continent of the world. Only women? You can hardly have a male queen, my love. Very funny. You know what I mean. There are no male symbionts. Really? So symbionts reproduce asexually, or? She frowned. What's wrong? That is a very private topic of discussion, and it is very impolite to ask a symbiont such a question. Oh, sorry, I didn't know. Perhaps I will tell you one day, when we have grown more familiar with one another. And you don't feel that we've reached that level yet? When we have, there will be no need to ask. Right now, you should be preparing yourself for royal service. Whoa, hey, pump your brakes, lady. You aren't queen yet, she laughed. My sisters pose no threat. You know how much you sound like my brother? He used to beat me in chess all the time, but I kept practicing, and one day I finally beat him. He probably let you win. This is what older siblings do so that their younger siblings do not lose confidence. I scoffed. Potty doesn't let me win anything. How would you know? Because I know him. He's always been a competitive ass. She shrugged. My sisters would say the same. Tell me, have you beaten him in anything other than chess? I thought about it. I beat him in a game of Avenue Fighter 2, once. What is that? A video game. My love, do not take this as an unkindness, but your brother is being merciful to you. Be grateful, let your confidence flourish, and never be afraid to fail. Esme and Liv may be desperate or foolish enough to try to kill you, but as long as you stay by my side, there is no reason to be concerned. I swallowed. They'd try to kill me? She shrugged. I would if either of them had found a Jair. You are my source of power, after all. Perhaps it would be prudent to consider precautionary measures. You think? There is another matter. It isn't important yet, but we will eventually have to discuss it. Which is? Your soul. I will need it. I remembered Mrs. Rollingpin mentioning this back at the old machine, but I had deliberately avoided bringing the subject up again. I think part of me was hoping that the elf woman was just trying to scare us, but another part of me had known better. That part deeply dreaded what would come of that discussion. I don't know how that would even happen, Ilinka, but I've given you enough of my life. You're not taking my soul, too. You have seen too much television. It isn't as dismal as it sounds. The exchange of souls is a precious time when three become one. Yeah, that sounds pretty dismal. You would not want me to be a part of you? I wouldn't want anyone to be a part of me but me, and I definitely draw the line at giving anyone my soul. An expression that I couldn't read crossed her features. This is something we will discuss at a later time, yes? 9. As usual, the fun didn't stop there. The girls voted down my idea to consider the old machine factory as a new hideout and went house hunting. That's right, house hunting. It goes without saying that I think this is completely ridiculous, I told them. And yet, you said it, Krista remarked. That's right, I said it. Because nobody in this car seems to be able to grasp that buying an entire house to make it a hideout for a superhero team is a complete waste of money. Krista's dad owns a real estate agency, so he's going to get us a really good deal, said Tran. Is there anything that your dad doesn't have his fingers in? I asked. Daddy's always had an eye for business. He owns stock in non-lethal weapons, office supplies, real estate, household cleaners, those walk-in tubs for old geezers, air conditioner filters, J-phone apps, essential oils, custom swimming pools, space heaters and air conditioners, decorative water fountains. I can't remember the rest. What else could there possibly be? I mumbled. After school, we changed into our costumes at Krista's house before meeting the person who had contacted her. It was the first time that I had seen an actual bearskin rug anywhere but in the old Bugs Bunny cartoons. There were animal heads on the wall, and a real stuffed cougar in one corner that scared the crap out of me. So your family is really into taxidermy, huh? I asked her. We're into hunting. Someone else does the stuffing and mounting. Pretty creepy, isn't it? Asked Matthias. Scared a turd right out of training when she saw that cougar for the first time. It was just a fart, Tran exclaimed. And I don't know why you'd tell him. Krista had set the meeting place for the bullied kid at a bookstore. She would meet him while the rest of us lingered nearby, listening in on the conversation with earbuds. I had expected it to be the kid from the video, the one who had been beaten up, but it wasn't. It was another boy. How is he? Asked Krista. Your friend. He isn't my friend, he admitted. It's just, those guys bully everyone, and if you try to stick up for someone, then they start bullying you. Telling their parents doesn't change anything, but it's all the teachers ever do. I see. What are you going to do? We'll start by talking to the cops to see what they can do. The cops don't care about bullies. You'd be surprised. Assault is assault no matter how old they are. What if that doesn't work? We'll figure something out. Don't worry. We won't stop until it's taken care of. The kid hesitated. Thanks. There was relief in his voice. Having an older brother, I knew the hope that came in knowing that someone would stand up for you. Some people would call it weakness, but the way I saw it, The kid could have simply never said anything to anyone at all. Instead, he was doing something. He was depending on us. I was the last one to leave the store and get back to Matthias's car, and when I did, I found all three of the girls in tears. What happened? That little boy, said Tran. He's counting on us, Krista finished. And that makes you cry? Matthias pounded her fists on the steering wheel. Just shut your face and get in. We had just pulled onto the freeway when an orange puff of smoke appeared in the air in front of me. Frecklestein popped out with her arms spread wide. Frecklestein up in the he's bench! Krista, Tran, and Matthias shrieked. Matthias swerved in and out of the shoulder and yanked at her hair with one hand. Tran sunk down in her seat into an odd turtle position and kicked at the air with both feet. Kirsta might have managed to dive out of the back window, but thankfully it only went halfway down. I grabbed the steering wheel, yanked the car into the shoulder, then pulled the emergency brake. Krista beat at me wildly, but I managed to pull her away from the window and heave her over to Tran's side of the seat. They clutched each other and kept screaming. The fairy held her hands over her ears until they stopped. Geez, Hume girls are so weird. Do you really have to pop in like that? I asked her. We're on the freeway. Well, excuse me. It's not like I can see what's over here before I teleport in. Why don't I believe that? Because you're an ass. I went through the whole spiel of calming the girls down and explaining Frecklestein to Tran and Krista. Matthias recovered a little better than them, but she kept her knees hugged to her chest. I'm here to see if you've forgiven the last person on your list, said Frecklestein. No, because I have no idea who it is, and you won't give me a clue. Maybe that's because I'm tired of you giving my riddles a low rating and hurting my feelings. I know I told you to be honest, but there's such a thing as being nice when an artist asks for your opinion. Nice. My point is that the sooner I figure this out, the sooner you can go on your merry way and not worry about my opinion. You want me to leave? Yes, we want you to leave, shrieked Matthias. You think we screamed in terror because we want you here? Frecklestein's lower lip quivered and her eyes got big and wet-looking. We don't actually want you to leave because we don't want you here, I said. I actually enjoy having you around, and I'm sure they'll feel the same way once they get to know you a little. I just want you to stop biting me. I feel your bites even when you aren't here. She took a little handkerchief from behind her back and dabbed at her eyes. That's called the ghost bite. It takes years of meditation and training to master. Don't worry, it's probably not permanent. Probably. You really like having me around? Because I like being here. I rarely have this much fun with Humes. They always try to swat me or spray me with insecticide or get me on sticky paper. But you take your punishment, and you're still nice to me. Then something occurred to me. Is that why you won't give me a clue about the last person that I have to forgive? Once you forgive them, I'll get a new assignment, and it'll be back to getting sprayed and swatted again. A girl can only take so much of that, you know? And I don't have any more vacation time until next year. My lower lip quivered and my eyes got big and wet-looking. James, don't you dare fall for that, Matthias demanded. You hear me? James! I reached out and patted the fairy's shoulder with a comforting finger. She grabbed my sleeve, blew her nose, then vigorously rubbed the little green slick into the fabric. So you guys out for a drive? Where you headed? 10. Having somewhat learned from the Mrs. Rolling Pin debacle, we decided to be more organized in our pursuit of the bullies. They lived in Dickinson, a small city a little southeast of Houston, but in different subdivisions. We had planted tracking devices, yes, Krista's dad invests in those too, on each of the targets. It hadn't been an easy task. Ultimately, we had to get the kid who Krista met at the bookstore to do it, because he was the only one who had access to their backpacks. I don't know that I've ever been as afraid for someone as I had been when imagining what would happen to the poor guy if one or both of the bullies, or even a teacher, caught him in the act, but he had agreed to do it without hesitation, and his bravery had really inspired us. Now we all listened intently as Matthias began to lay out the plan, which was more or less to get each bully after he got off of the after-school bus and before he got home. We have to be quick. Get in, kick their little asses, and get out. Make sure they understand why they are getting their asses kicked, and make sure they understand that if they hurt anyone else, their asses will get kicked again. That's the main... Frecklestein raised her hand. What is it? Matthias asked, not happy to be interrupted. What's everybody's name again? I can't even remember mine. You forgot your own hero name? asked Tran. Matthias pointed to each of us. Trainee is Funbags, James is Token, Chrissy is Savasana, I'm Thesex, and you're Trick What? Don't forget that in the field. The fairy saluted. Right. Okay, people, continued Matthias. Communication is the key to success in any operation. It works in sports, and it's going to work for us. We're going to wear the earbuds so we can talk to each. Yes, Freckelstein? Do you have any of those ear thingamajigs in my size? They don't make them in your size. You're going to have to deal. Freckelstein's wings folded down. I wanted an earbud. Why do we even need the earbuds if we're going to be together? Asked Krista. Because we're not going to be together. We're going to break into 2 teams so that we can hit the little bastards at the same time. We don't want to hit one and have the other one give a heads up to the one we don't hit. James and I will be one team and… Krista held up a hand. Hold on, you two are the freaks. He's the Jesus Whisperer, and you can do stuff with Alinka. Wouldn't it be safer to put a freak on each team instead of putting the normies together? That's a good point, I said. Yes, it is a good point, said Matthias tightly. I don't need you to tell me when a point is good. I have a right to tell you when I think a point is good if I want to. And I have a right to tell you when to shut your face, which is a right that I will be exercising in 2 seconds. And Mark, shut your face. Now then, I was going to take suggestions when I was finished laying out the plan. In the future, please wait until then and don't interrupt. Trainee will come with me, and Chrissy will go with James. And me? Asked Freckelstein. You come with us. It's best for newbies to stay with the leader until they learn how things are done. The fairy gave another salute. Stop doing that. Doing what? Saluting. Oh, sorry, it's a habit. My boss loves it. Is everyone clear on the plan? We stay in constant communication. If anyone on either team gives the abort, we each run in different directions and meet behind that convenience store at 2300 hours. Tran frowned. That's like 8 hours from now. Really? I sighed. 2300 hours is 11 o'clock at night, Matthias. Well, excuse me for not knowing computer geek gamer language. What would be a good time to meet up, nerd face? The point of splitting up after an aborted mission is so that we all aren't caught at once if we're being chased. The point of allowing time between the abort and the meeting is to let the heat die down. That shouldn't take more than an hour, 2 tops, especially since nobody is probably going to care what we're doing anyway. 1700 hours, then? I nodded. Okay, any more questions? Ask now, because anyone who goes off mission will be shot and hung. Freckelstein squeaked. She's kidding, I assured the fairy. And what would be the point of hanging someone after you shot them? It's the only way to be sure, said Matthias. In hindsight, I should have known things were going to go south for Krista and me. The last 3 months of my life not considered, I'm not typically a magnet for fecal matter storms, but when it rains, it pours. 11. It was about 3:15 when Krista and I got to the local park and began waiting for the school bus to arrive. You nervous? She asked. Aren't you? I think I'm nervous because I've never done anything like this. But when I think about that video and that poor kid on the floor, I get, really angry. Yeah, but they're kids. We're about to beat up a kid for beating up another kid. I shrugged. It just makes me feel kind of dirty, and I haven't even done it yet. You don't know what it's like living with bullies. If we don't do this, then nothing happens. Nothing. The bastards just keep hurting kids that are weaker than them. You might feel dirty, but you know what? Looking at that video knowing that I could do something but didn't would make me feel even worse. But is this the… Krista shushed me and tilted her chin toward the street. There's the bus. A small group of kids got off the bus, but Bruce Richardson wasn't hard to recognize. Krista and I pulled up our hoodies and separated. She followed him on the sidewalk, and I went around a fairly narrow wooded area. By the time I got around to the back of his house and made my way up the side, Krista had already accosted him. You're Bruce, right? Yeah? She had her mask on now, but I could hear the cheerleader smile in her voice as she spoke. Awesome. Me and my friend there have been really big fans of yours since we saw you on that internet video. The kid started to look uneasy. He turned and saw me standing with my arms folded. Video? Krista held her phone up and showed him the video from the local news website. I expected the brat to deny that it was him, to say that he didn't know who that was on the video or better, to just stand there in silence. Instead, he told Krista to, well, you know. Aren't you a spicy little turd? She kicked him in the gut, and he landed on his backpack cringing and cursing. Then she went to one knee and repeatedly punched him in the face and body. She looked at me, breathing hard. Your turn. He's had enough. She scoffed, kicked him again, then grabbed his shirt and spoke in that same peppy tone. All right, spicy turd, now you know what it feels like, and if you ever touch anyone at your school again, we'll find you. Only next time, we won't stop until your body stops twitching. Then we'll chop off a finger, and then another one, and we'll keep chopping things off until we think you got the message. We had only gotten a few feet away when the kid let out a weird mewing sound. The only thing that came to my mind was some sort of newborn bison calf. I took a step toward him, but Krista grabbed my wrist. Let's just go! Before I could protest, there was a loud roar from inside the house. Not like a lion roar, more like a really angry, really big man. The door to the house opened, and an old woman with a walker came out. She looked at us, looked at the mewing kid on the ground, then sighed. Moving calmly, she sat in a rocking chair and leaned her head back. A stream of black sooty stuff streamed up about 10 feet out of her nose and open mouth. When it had gathered into a loose, pulsating form, 2 red points of light appeared. Run! Screamed Krista, but the thing shot down and at me before I could turn around. It bulleted at my chest but bounced back with a vicious growl. Krista, duck! I shouted, but she had no time to react. The black ephemeral mass hit her in the back, and she was knocked forward into the foliage. I rushed to help, but she was already getting to her feet. When she turned and looked at me, she was different. Her eyes were red, 2 flaming points of red light. Blue veins had crawled up her neck and black drool flowed freely from her mouth when she smiled. Krista? A healer. Decades have passed since Nature gnawed the bones of a healer. My mouth went dry. Nature? Of the legions of hell and Tartarus, shouted the Krista thing. You face your doom, mortal. I will crush the— James, how are things going? Asked Matthias into our earbuds. Me and Trainee made that little brat piss his pants. It was so hilarious. Not a good time, Matthias. I was backing away from the demon slowly. Don't get catty with me. Trainee felt like some French fries, so we're at the burger apocalypse now. You want something while we're here? Who dares interrupt me? Nature demanded. Who the hell is this? Matthias demanded back. James, did you let some hobo steal your earbud? Something is inside of Krista, I barked. I am Nature. I will grind you all into bloody pulp. Ew, said Matthias. That doesn't sound like Chrissy at all. Oh, crap! I ran into the street as Nature charged me, but the prospect of outrunning him was laughable. Krista, fitness lunatic that she was, jogged 6 miles on a set route in her neighborhood every other morning before school, and could probably compete on an Olympic track and field level. I couldn't have gotten 30 feet at my limping pace before Nature grabbed the waistband of my pants and yanked me to a complete halt. My teeth clicked from the whiplash. Where do you think you're going, cripple? The Krista monster punched me on my right hip bone. The pain started dull but continued to build into an excruciating throb. All I could do was press my hand against it and grit my teeth in agony. James? James? We're stuck in the drive-thru, but I'm going to pay for the food and then we'll be— There was a gagging sound, and Alinka screamed, I'm coming, my love! There was the sound of a frantically bleeding car horn in the background as Tran protested. Maddie, what are you doing? We're next in— Oh my god, don't drive over the bushes! What about my fries? Shrieked Frecklestein. Nature punched me in the stomach, then held me in front of his face as I struggled to breathe. Don't think they'd be able to save you even if they got here before I finish you, human. I elbowed him in the cheekbone, but it barely made his head move. Good! I was hoping you'd have some fight in you at least. Give me more. You hesitate. You're worried about your friend's body. A wise consideration. Your puny blows mean nothing to me, but they bring her great suffering. Krista! I shouted, trying to see past the veiny greenish skin and the glowing eyes. The monster was right. I was worried about hurting her. Krista, are you there? Can you fight him? Foolishness. She cannot resist Nature. I will take my time with you, boy, and then I will think of a slow, painful death for this female. Perhaps I will tell you of the man I once had slice open his own belly. I gave him just enough control of his limbs to hold in his innards and wander aimlessly on the street for aid that never came. Ha ha ha! I clenched my teeth. I'm not sorry for what we did to your kid. He had it coming. The demon laughed. That thing is a mere minion. Trash. Did you think that I torment you out of vengeance? This is pleasure. He tossed me across a yard and into a cluster of recycling containers. They clattered over and spilled all manner of cans and bottles. I groggily tried to get to my feet, and that's when I noticed them. The people standing outside of each house. Men in their underwear. Women in their late 50s wearing housecoats and curlers. They were all looking at me and slowly crowding around. Yes, my army controls this entire neighborhood. We are under orders to lay dormant, but occasionally the chance for paltry entertainment comes. He kicked my feet out from under me. I barely managed to brace the fall, but my hands smacked painfully into something wet. Oh, how clumsy of you. It looks like we've stumbled into recycle juice. Krista's hand grabbed my neck and began to push downward. You might be interested to know that even in the far reaches of hell, recycle juice is utilized to torture damned souls. You know what the worst aspect of it is? He pushed down harder on my neck. You really never know what's in it. But I do. Ask me what's in it. Screw you, I grunted. He pressed down harder. Ask, and maybe I'll spare you having to taste it. The pressure was just too great. I was using all of my strength, and I already knew that I couldn't resist much longer. What's in it? Najer chuckled. Oh, that is an interesting question. The man who lives here is a stickler for recycling. He thinks that he is saving this worthless planet with his empty cans, but he has other vices. Yes, we have made him a hopeless sugar addict. He also adores his tobacco. You should see his cancerous, sore-ridden gums. Most of the teeth that he has left are worthless, loose, brown things. He spits that rancid tobacco phlegm into these very cans. Terror almost unhinged my mind. My head was close enough to smell the oozing black puddle now, and yes, I could see the brown lumps of cold, diseased mucus. Old tobacco spit. The cancer. We will dispose of your bodies with the others in these yards as we have for years. His mouth pressed against my ear. And you will both be forgotten. He couldn't have known that dripping garbage bags were amongst my most terrifying phobias. Merely thinking of what the liquid actually consisted of when I saw it ordinarily gave me shivers. It may as well have been green, glowing, radioactive, toxic waste for what it would do to my psyche. There wasn't enough soap in Texas. There weren't enough sanitizing wipes in the world. I would never recover. And I understood that he could have already done it. Even as I groaned against my burning hands and shoulders, I knew that Najer wasn't struggling at all. There was an implacable, terrible force in Krista's hand. Any second, my muscles would quit, and it would be over. Then somehow, my eye caught an address nailed to the side of the house in narrow brass numbers. 6, 1, 2, Price. Price had said something. About Ephesians 6:12. Jesus! My strength was gone. The word came out of my mouth in a low, almost inaudible squeak the moment before my arms would have given out, and the result was instant. Najer exploded off the ground and landed 20 feet away. The agonized burning in my arms and hands subsided as I stood slowly. The closest of the leering, gathering crowd, a fat man wearing suspenders, grabbed the sides of his head and stumbled away screaming. They all did. The creepy formation was forgotten as they all tripped over one another, scattering in all directions. Don't say that name, I heard a number of the receding voices beg. Absently rubbing the back of my stiff neck, I watched the wild mass exodus in awe. Najer's glowing eyes were wide and frightened. Don't say that name! Stay back! Stay away from me! We fight not against flesh and blood, I said, now with my own grin. That's you, isn't it? You're a principality, a ruler of darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places. A warm sensation grew in my hands. I have a right to this body. This girl is... My fingers closed around something hot and metallic, and I gasped when I looked down. The magnificent claymore looked like it should have weighed close to 100 pounds, especially if the filigreed gold hilt was real. As stunningly crafted as it was, however, what held my attention were the tiny symbols etched in the blade. Arabic? Hebrew? Yeah, somehow I understood that the writing was Hebrew. The tiny but vibrant red characters scrolled slowly like living things from the tip of the blade and down to the guard. Then it disappeared. The sword simply faded away. But it hadn't. My hand was still warm, and the same way that I understood the origin of the scrolling letters, I knew that the weapon was still there. Najer backed into a tree. You! How can a whelp like you wield that? I pointed my warm left hand at him. In the holy name of Jesus, get out of my friend, demon! Kirsta's body stiffened and she rose off the ground. Thinking that the demon would keep pulling her up, I lunged forward and wrapped my arms desperately around her waist. The sooty black stuff shot out of her mouth and nose as it had the old woman's, but a translucent grayish vomit came with it and covered her chest and my face. Then the upward pull stopped and we fell awkwardly to the ground. "J. James? What happened?" There was no sign of nausea in her eyes, and her skin was normal again. "Do you remember anything?" "It's like a bad dream. I feel like oh my God, look." The oak tree behind where Krista had been suspended in the air had been cut diagonally up the trunk, and the upper part lay in the street. Our eyes followed the long gash in the ground 3 houses down the road until it finally terminated at the edge of the street. The car on the second driveway, cut in 2 awkward pieces, had collapsed inward onto itself. I looked at my hand. "Did you do that?" I shook my head. "It was a sword." "A sword? Where?" "I'll tell you later. Right now I think we should get out of here. Can you stand up?" It was dusk, but there was no more sign of any of the people. Even the bully kid was gone. Were they back in their houses, or had they simply fled completely out of sight? "Oh my God, I spewed everywhere," Krista groaned. "It's not bad. I don't see any food in it. I think it's just some kind of ecto-slime. You know, like the stuff Slimer and Ghostbusters left everywhere." She vomited again. "Okay, yeah," I grimaced. "There's definitely food in that." "Sorry," she winced, holding her midsection. The Cooper rounded the corner with a screech of tires as I helped Krista to her feet. Tran's expression of pure horror was clearly visible as they pulled up and onto the nearby curb. She was sitting on top of Alinka in the driver's seat and clenching the steering wheel desperately in both hands. Freckelstein was frantically clenching the rearview mirror with her arms and legs and a cartoonish look of fear in her eyes. Alinka opened the door, shoved Tran to one side, and got out. She ran to us and hastily inspected my chest and back. "My love, are you well? What attacked you?" Then noticing the long, jagged tear in the ground. "What happened?" Krista and I explained as best we could, and afterward we looked around a bit for any sign of the people who had fled. "It looks like they just left everything on in their houses," said Krista. "I don't even think they locked their doors." "They might come back when we're gone," I said. Tran nodded. "Then maybe we should go before that happens." "Agreed," said Alinka. She was standing in front of me looking about as if expecting an ambush at any moment. The ride home was somber. Even Freckelstein was quiet. But that was probably because Matthias went back to the burger place and picked up her small order of French fries. The fairy had gorged herself, then fell asleep on the back seat between me and Tran. I wasn't sure how much any of them believed about what Krista and I had told them. They just seemed to take it in the way people do when they are told about interesting things in conversation. I couldn't blame them for doubting it all. The only actual evidence of the encounter had been the gash in the ground, the severed car, and maybe the strangely deserted houses. But I had witnessed the power of God with my own eyes, and had seen evil flee in terror of it. When it came down to it, the only thing that really mattered was that I believed. Epilogue. The Raptus Manor, 1 year later. "This will monitor your pulse," Dr. Ariel said, clipping the sensor onto my finger. "If you flatline, I'll be the second person to know, because you'll be the first to know." Just a little doctor humor there. "That's not funny when someone is about to get his brain drilled," I shouted. She put a hand on my shoulder and spoke in a serious tone. If Alinka were a younger symbiont, then I would be concerned, but mature symbionts are very skilled at this procedure. "Don't they get that skill by killing the hosts?" "Unfortunately, yes," she admitted. "That is a common side effect, but not one that you need to be concerned with." "How are you so calm talking about people dying?" "It's nature," she said, and shrugged. It was a simple answer, but it felt more like something that she had taught herself to accept rather than condone. Ilinka was laying on the other gurney with her eyes closed. "Is she meditating?" I asked. "I am withdrawing the connections that have grown into her cerebellum from my tail," said Ilinka. "It is a delicate process when one wishes not to leave the host's brain damaged." "Right. Speaking of which, what kind of damage is this going to do to Matthias?" "Oh, now you want to know that?" asked Matthias. "Hey, your brain is already damaged. Mine is still pristine and full of untapped potential." "Pristine my ass. My absence will be brief, so no permanent harm will be done to either of you," Alinka assured us. I kept flexing my palms. They were almost dripping with nervous sweat. It might help to close your eyes, said Dr. Ariel. Patients who haven't seen symbionts in their natural form sometimes find them a little disconcerting. Matthias turned over so that she was laying on her belly. Her expression was somber. Are you ready? Probably not. She shut her eyes. Then clear runnels of snot began to ooze from her nose. Then the viscous flow turned into thick drops of blood. Matthias? Are you… She waved me off with a hand, but the wincing worried me. A lump appeared in her left nostril, and as it descended, a multitude of small, insectile legs grasped the rim of her nose for leverage. I remembered to close my eyes just a little too late to miss seeing the worm-like creature that fell onto the bloody mess under Matthias's face. I opened one eye. The creature laid still. Now, as someone who is terrified of spiders and worms in all shapes and forms, I can't even begin to explain what it took for me to lay there with it staring at me, and I knew it. She was staring at me. Not that there were eyes that I could make out on the small body. She wasn't a worm exactly, but something caught between a centipede and a slug. Even streaked with blood, the striped pattern of bright purple on her body were as vibrant as a poison dart frog. Hi? The heart rate machine had begun to beat more rapidly. James, don't forget to breathe, advised Dr. Ariel. The creature began moving slowly, making chittering noises as it slowly crept toward me. Can you understand what she's saying? I asked Matthias, who shook her head. She was holding a towel over her nose. Does she want me to do something? I don't know. Maybe shut up and tilt your head back? Alinka chittered again, and I had to keep reminding myself that this was Alinka. A person. Someone who I had been talking to and who talked to me. A friend. I don't think I can do this. This isn't natural. James, don't you dare go chicken shit on us now, Matthias demanded. I'm already feeling dizzy. Remember she said that she can't be outside of me for a long time. She sounded normal, but her skin was already going pale, and her eyes were beginning to turn teary and bloodshot. Somehow, seeing her like that was ultimately what kept me on my gurney. Dr. Ariel was monitoring her pulse machine closely, and when she spoke, that disarming cheer was gone from her voice. Her vitals are still within acceptable parameters, but I can't recommend wasting time. If the three of you plan on doing this, let's move it along. Okay, right. I'm going to tilt my head back. Okay. I angled my head until Alinka was out of my field of vision. The human body had some orifices that are only meant to have things go one way. When something goes in the opposite direction, involuntary reactions take place. I flinched when I felt something skitter quickly up my shoulder, then onto my neck and chin, then my upper lip. She landed on my abdomen when I sneezed. That's going to piss her off, said Matthias. Alinka, I'm so sorry. That was a complete accident. The worm was eerily still, watching me. Okay, here we go. I'm leaning my head back. I'm shutting my eyes. I can't believe I'm shutting my… This time she shot up my nose like a vicious, squishy finger. The urge to sneeze came and went. Then there was an itching at the roof of my mouth for about 15 seconds. Then nothing. And more nothing. I was trying to be gentle with you, my love, Alinka said patiently. You sneezed on me. I opened my eyes and saw a tall, lavender-skinned woman looking serenely down at me. Those purple eyes were unmistakable. The lithe look of her fingers and limbs made her seem more like something out of a fantasy painting of whimsical creatures than a natural human woman. Her high cheekbones brought to mind a Native American princess from a Hollywood movie. The black antelope-like horns weren't exactly menacing, only disconcerting in their authenticity. You see her? Matthias whispered. I nodded as I got up from the gurney and backed away. The heart monitor fell off my finger. What does she look like? Is she naked? She's always naked when I see her. She's tall, and she doesn't look like you at all. And she's wearing your volleyball uniform. What? It is an outfit that you like, yes? Asked Alinka. My back was pressed against the wall, but she only watched me with a patient expression. I cleared my throat. My volleyball uniform? Matthias's tone had more than a hint of suspicion in it. Hey, stop trying to make it sound like I'm some kind of perv. I didn't tell her to wear that. You are a perv. She's wearing that because she knows you like it. Fine, I like it. I'm a straight red-blooded American guy. And most straight guys like women's volleyball uniforms. Alinka brushed her long, silky black hair behind an ear and squared her shoulders. At the same time, she lengthened several more inches until she was about 7 feet tall. What do you think of me? You mean like, how you look? She gave a nod, executed a graceful pirouette, then waited. You're very pretty. You may continue. That's all I can think of, she scoffed. Pitiful. You truly have no sense of poetry or romance. There is much for you to learn, but I like that you find me pleasing. Enough of this. There isn't very much time before I must return to her. She walked around and stood beside Matthias's gurney. You kept your word and gave me the favor that you owed me. I did not expect you to. So you're not really there, right? Not to anyone but you. I looked at the floor. But there's your shadow, and I can smell you. The mind is very powerful. You expect shadows, reflections, so it makes them real to you. Here. I watched amazed as she put her hand straight through Dr. Ariel's head. The doctor's careful attention on Matthias's heart monitor display didn't waver. Wow, my mind is doing that? She nodded and smiled. With my aid, of course. I find that hosts are more amicable when I appear to them this way. Do you like the fragrance I've chosen? I sniffed. Yeah, what is that? Strawberries, with a hint of freshly baked bread. That is really cool, unless you're damaging my brain and making me retarded. Can't break a broken glass, Matthias mumbled. I am not damaging you. It has been many years since I bothered to enter a man outside of necessity. It's not as interesting as I had expected it to be, your mind. It is more organized than hers. Yes, more organized. A mundane consciousness can be refreshing after dealing with a chaotic one. It's called sanity. You are overly paranoid and self-centered. These are aspects that I find tiresome, but bearable. Then she frowned. You still do not trust me, despite everything that I've done for you. You believe that I always have an ulterior motive? Yep. My love, I would never betray your trust. I only want what's best for both of us. If you would simply accept that, then we could get along so much better. One reason for me wanting this meeting was to improve our relationship. Time will tell. Perhaps. But my questions have been answered. What questions? You know she can hear you if you just think at her, interrupted Matthias. Only hearing your side of the conversation is just annoying, and you don't have to yell. God, I feel like I have a hangover. She was getting paler, and now there were beads of sweat on her forehead. Time to wrap this up, people, announced Dr. Ariel. I tried to aim my thoughts at the apparition. What questions? The important ones. I mainly wanted to know of your feelings for us, for me. You did all this to find that out? It isn't a question whose answer can be trusted, not verbally, and certainly not from humans. You have demonstrated it on occasion, but I could never be certain if those acts were out of some other base sentiment. Now I know that you care deeply for both of us. This is acceptable. Oh well, that's just wonderful. Well worth drilling into my skull and risking brain trauma. It's called friendship, Alinka. I have never shared such a thing with a human outside of a host before, she commented. Also, I wanted to give you a gift for your rite of passage, this graduation day. Money would have been fine, which you would squander. I wanted my gift to be remembered. She held out a hand, and I flinched when I touched the warm tips of her fingers. Is this all you wish to send me off with? A simple brush of fingers? Yeah, I think that's the best thing to do. This is starting to really mess with my head. She frowned. Very well. Come and receive my gift if you want it. I shrugged. Sure. A gift of clarity and truth. As you grow older, you will find that these are often bitter things, but there are times when they can be invigorating. I have come to view them as precious commodities. Do you understand why? I shook my head. Because they are rare. Come to the window with me. As we stood at the window, the distant entrance to the front lawn, as well as the cobbled driveway leading to the front of the mansion, were in plain view. Ilinka waved a hand in a wide arcing motion. The sky went from bright afternoon to reddish-orange dusk, and finally to deep violet starry night in the space of a few seconds. Whoa, that is so... How did you do... You are seeing what I wish for you to see. Now hush. Watch there. Headlights appeared at the gate and made their way up the driveway. It was the Cooper. I could see the light from Matthias's cell phone reflecting off her face as she parked the car, then sat with the motor running. She finally put the device away, turned the engine off and opened the door, but didn't notice the hooded figure that came out from the black shadows of the nearby bushes. She was only partially out of the car when the first blow from the crowbar caught her in the upper back. I flinched, and my hand came up to my mouth in shock. "Matthias!" Alinka caught my elbow when I started toward the front door. "You see the past," she reminded me calmly. "Mere phantoms. These are my memories of the night that I joined with her. There is nothing to be done." But it was so real. The sickening sound of metal on bone. Matthias screaming as her flailing hands uselessly tried to block the vicious onslaught. Worst of all, the way the sick bastard didn't seem to get tired. He just kept swinging and swinging like a soulless robot until she wasn't moving anymore. Then he stood over her, and it must have been a cool night because I could see off-rhythm puffs of condensation coming from the featureless hooded face. He was talking to her. Then he rolled her over with a boot, and with his free hand began to unbuckle his belt. The vantage point of the scene suddenly blurred from the window over the lawn, to underneath the Cooper, and finally to Matthias's bloody face. There was a brief fade to black. Now the view rose up and turned. The assailant stumbled backward. The belt hung undone about the open crotch of jeans as he swung the crowbar not with sadistic patience, but panicked desperation. A left hand, Matthias's left hand, came into view and caught the weapon. She yanked it out of his grip and tossed it out of the field of view. Her right hand reached forward, palmed the man's face, and launched him backward into the brick wall. He slumped into a twitching heap on the porch. "This is you now?" I asked. "This is you, controlling Matthias's body? There is more, but she has already told you what you need to know of that." He succumbed to my wrath slowly. The view rapidly faded from night back into the brightness of evening as Alinka's memory faded. We were back in present-day reality looking over the front lawn. I turned to Matthias, who was laying on her back with the towel over her nose. Up until now, I mostly thought of her as a spoiled, rich white girl living in a castle, always protected from the realities of the world. But she had faced death just yards away from where we were standing. Death, and worse. Symbionts do more than consume emotions, my love. We seek to understand them. I do not ordinarily care for what befalls humans. Many times I have watched the evil things that they do to one another. But there was something different about this. It tore something out of me that I did not know was there. Empathy. An emotion that I've always had difficulty understanding. I was intrigued and wished to explore it further. "Do you think you understand it better?" I asked. "Perhaps. Or perhaps I am only growing soft and old like my insufferable mother." I hugged her, not caring that the side of my head was pressing into her titties, or that I probably looked like I was hugging air to Matthias and Dr. Ariel. "Oh, sweet Lord," mumbled Matthias. "Now he's actually trying to hump an imaginary woman. Get a hold of yourself, James. She's not real." The solidity of Alinka's body began to fade slowly, but her voice remained clear. "I have enjoyed our meeting. Perhaps we will do it again one day. Lie down now and I will begin withdrawing myself. But I would not have our first true encounter end on such a melancholy note. You sometimes use a term, this elephant in the room." "Yes?" "Yeah, it means, look there." She pointed at something behind me, and when I turned around, I shrieked. Sitting calmly in the corner of the room was a massive bull elephant. It lifted its trunk and bayed so loud that I thought the windows would shatter. Alinka hopped and laughed and clapped. "This is Elephant in the room!"
If you've made it this far, you have my sincerest gratitude. My plan is to keep uploading James and Matthias's adventures when I can, and perhaps other stories as well. Thanks again for listening, and stay tuned.